Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint by Sing Shong. Chapter 523. Epilogue 1. The World of Zero. Part 7. It had already been 2 months since I started observing the zero-th turn. There was this one thing I got to learn during this time period, and it'd be the fact that regardless of which regression turn it was, Yu Young Hyok would always be Yu Young Hyok. I'm not selecting anyone. Incarnation Yu Young Hyok has not selected his constellation backer. And with that, the second sponsor selection came to a close. If I were to include the sudden, unannounced sponsor selection that happened in the middle, then this would be the third time. Yu Young Hyok didn't choose his constellation backer during all 3 occasions. He couldn't choose during the first one because of me, though. Suchuchit. My palm that smacked the back of his head still stung quite a bit. Well, I did forcibly but enduring the beginning scenario and knocked out an incarnation about to enter an important event, so even I wouldn't be able to escape from the after effects. Whatever the case might have been, Yu Young Hyok began showing an unbelievable level of wariness during the sponsor selection events afterwards. Constellations. They are capable of knocking me out cold without the slightest warning. I must not carelessly trust them. It surely was an unfortunate turn of event from my perspective. Still, others also didn't get selected, so it wasn't such a big loss either way. Constellation Abyssal Black Flame Dragon complains by asking why he was not chosen. Constellation Mouse that Eats Fingernails is drooling after incarnation Yu Young Hyok's fingernails. Constellation Founder of Humanity is interested in incarnation Yu Young Hyok. Constellation Demon-like Judge of Fire is puzzled by incarnation Yu Young Hyok's action. Time passed and Bai Hyung's channel gradually grew larger, and the number of modifiers I knew had increased somewhat in the meantime. Constellation Demon King of Salvation is greeting the demon-like Judge of Fire. Constellation Demon-like Judge of Fire is snorting derisively. Uriel. Constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband is cackling. Constellation Demon King of Salvation is happily greeting the Prisoner of the Golden Headband. Constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband has started picking his nose. Right, this was how the proper ways of survival should be. I was remembering the figures of the constellations I knew and had forgotten about that fact for a moment there. Constellation Abyssal Black Flame Dragon warns other constellations that the Demon King of Salvation is an attention seeker, so others should be wary. Of course, the one I found most annoying of all was this dude. Just as I was about to say something even at the cost of wasting coins, Bai Hyung opened his mouth first. Conquering King Yu Young Hyok, will you really not select any constellation backer? I advise you to think about this one more time. No, I'm not choosing. Well, then. Dear constellation NIMs that applied to become the sponsors. Allow me to present you with a special opportunity to appeal to this particular incarnation. Bai Hyung came to be blessed with several Find the Incarnation groups all thanks to Yu Young Hyok, and as a result, that huge grin refused to leave his face the whole day long. He probably had figured out that this was his chance to score big. A short while later, a new message window popped up before my eyes. Dakibi Bai Hyung presents a special sponsorship opportunity. Please sponsor an item to the incarnation of your choosing. I was about to thoughtlessly tap on the confirm icon only to spot a very small fine print all the way at the bottom of the window. Asterisk 3,500 coins will automatically be deducted when purchasing the applicable item. I spat out a soft sigh. Current coin balance, 500C. Stu PID Kim Dokja. As I've completely emptied the Kim Dokja Company's coffers while clearing the final scenario, obviously I wouldn't have any coins left to my name now. I pondered if I could mass-produce coins somehow by abusing the authority of the most ancient dream, but the efficiency of that was not very good with my current power level, so that plan had been put on hold for now. Constellation Abyssal Black Flame Dragon says that if you sign the contract with him, he can turn you into a really cool black flame dragon. Constellation God of Wine and Ecstasy says that if you sign the contract with him, the legendary brew of the Olympus will specially be. Constellation, slumbering lady of fine brocade, says if you sign the contract with her, the mid-rank starter pack will be. The sponsorship messages from the constellations rained down from the sky. Hell, constellations promising to shower him with early stages special items, the kind that even I didn't get to use, were practically lining up in a queue here. Even in the original novel, Yu Young-hyuk from the third turn didn't enjoy this level of attention. So, how did a mere 0th turn become this famous? Quite simple, actually. Incarnation Yu Young-hyuk is rejecting the offers of constellations. That's not enough. That was all because the 0th turn Yu Young-hyuk was way too full of himself. There are far too many willing to give me such useless things. Isn't there anyone willing to share information on hidden pieces? Constellation, slumbering lady of fine brocade, is sweating profusely while replying that she doesn't know much about such topics. Is there anyone who can show me something similar to the revelations of the future? Constellation, master of Skywalk, says leaking such information is against the rules. You all are worse than this demon king of salvation, then. Portion of constellations are seriously curious about the true identity of the demon king of salvation. And so, the demon king of salvation began to enjoy an unprecedented level of popularity during the 0th turn regardless of his wishes. Demon king of salvation. Leaker of the future revelations? Olympus reveals leaking predictions is impossible, probability-wise. No demon king named Demon King of Salvation exists, declares Demon King Association. Abyssal Black Flame Dragon, modifier Demon King of Salvation is similar to the one he used to have. By reading the information coming in through the Starstream daily, I gained new appreciation on what the life of a constellation entailed. So, an incarnation becoming a constellation, and being one already at the start of the scenarios, could be this different, is it? Your fame has started spreading around Starstream. Portion of gossipers have created a song called Conman Demon King of Salvation and have begun spreading it. You have acquired 5,000 coins through the rise of your popularity. Whatever the case might have been, it wasn't such a bad deal for me. Hee. Dear Demon King of Salvation Nim. Will you continue with your patronage of my channel this month as well? Constellation, Demon King of Salvation, replies with of course. All thanks to you, dear Demon King Nim, this month's revenue has shot up by a noticeable amount. If it's not too much trouble, may I inquire about your true name? Honestly, I've never seen anyone treat probability like rats hit as much as you, Demon King Nim. Ah, ha ha ha. That was a compliment, of course. Constellation, Demon King of Salvation, says he can't reveal his true name. Is that so? How unfortunate. Honestly, I'm slightly puzzled by why someone as great as you decided to stick by this lowly one's channel. It's not like I've got an amazing backing or anything. Bai Hyung's expression showed his lack of confidence. I quietly stared at him for a bit before replying with these words. Constellation, Demon King of Salvation, says he's simply repaying his debt. Asterisk. A book you've read once before could be read again without too much hassle. However, you could also run into a roadblock in unexpected places. That's how the 0th turn felt like to me. Incarnation Yu Young-hyuk has not selected his constellation backer. In a certain way, Yu Young-hyuk's 0th turn was pretty similar to my own world line. Here was a tale that had deviated greatly from the predetermined plot development. Now that we were this far along, it should be impossible to go back to the plot of the original 0th turn, right? Young-hyuk SSI. Will it be fine to install the barricades over here? The Emperor of Steel Sword, Lee Hyun-sung. Oh aye, Captain. You promised to teach me that swordsmanship, didn't you? The Demon of Delusions, Kim Nam-woon. Master. Can I go item farming for a bit after this scenario ends? The Naval Admiral, E.G. Hai. And also, one more person had been added to the ranks, someone who shouldn't even be there during the 0th turn. When you're about to pass by the Gumho station, you must recruit that person. Maybe this was me just being greedy. In this world, you sang Igilyong, and even I didn't exist, but at least there was one person that Kim Dokja company could recruit. Hyansong SSI, it's not level over there. The judge that destroys evil, Jong Hui-won. I watched her go through the checklist of all the things her companions had missed, and fell into the reminiscence of the past. I was really happy back then. When we went to the department store together to buy new clothes and visited Eden like a bunch of celebs. Although I handed over a large portion of my memories to the 49% avatar, I still retained quite a lot. I focused myself in order to stay on the right path as the pages of memories rushed in like an incoming storm. That's why, you are someone who can only do this, right? The Jong Hui one I remember should be alright. Well, the story of that world came to a good end, after all. Companions in that place should be going to the Han River and to the ocean, spending their peaceful days with a version of me. I murmured that as if hypnotized myself and tried hard to focus on the world immediately before my eyes. Th's ISNTOUR war LDE either I know. Kim Dokja's world couldn't be found anywhere now. To an existence that saw all the worlds as dreams, there was no meaning to something like one true reality. And to forget about that fact, I poured all my being in observing the spectacle laid out before my eyes. I found it preferable to become a thoughtless constellation at this point. If I were to become a greedy devourer of stories that enjoyed scenarios and created situations he wanted to see, then I'd get to forget about everything else. Orabioni. Your Mia has done it. And fortunately enough, this story happened to be the one I loved the most. I told you not to use such a manner of speech in front of others. Hying. A bitter chuckle floated up on my lips while I observed Yu Young-hyuk reprimand his little sister's manner of speech. You should fix your own first, dude. Even if he was supposed to be a pro gamer, he must have held normal conversations with other people before. How was it even possible for him to live in society with that crappy manner of speech? Was it all down to his face's probability? The fourth scenario will soon begin. Everyone, get ready. Through the information I conveyed, Yu Young-hyuk grew stronger little by little. Manage Kim Nam-woon well so that he doesn't stray. He really respects you, so if you use that, things will become easy for you. Don't forget that no one starts as an evil person. Information that I sent his way by sacrificing an incredible amount of probability every single time. Don't get cocky in the cinema dungeon and calmly clear it. The last boss there uses mental attacks, so before you face it, get this skill first and if you tie Gong Pildu down well during the early scenarios, he'll continue to be useful later on. He's not completely irredeemable, so do your best to reform him. The hint is. At first, Yu Young-hyuk didn't trust me, but after my revelations came true one by one, he began to believe me more and more. About damn time. Just who was responsible for you coming this far, anyway? Honestly speaking, I was still a bit miffed by the fact that he hadn't chosen the Demon King of Salvation as his constellation backer yet. By the way, how come you know so much about the scenarios, Captain? Someone is helping me out. Helping you out. Thankfully, the 0th turns Yu Young-hyuk wasn't someone who'd forget all about his benefactor. Hand over the next revelation. Yu Young-hyuk spent a huge wealth amounting to over 30,000 coins and opened up a one-on-one secret communication line. It was an obvious thing to do since I kept feeding him important information, but still, I wanted to praise him for it. Constellation, Demon King of Salvation, is granting a portion of revelation to Incarnation Yu Young-hyuk. The core of the fourth scenario is the Absolute Throne. Remember that you must never. Suchuchuchuchu. An incredible amount of probability was being exhausted every time I handed over the information to him. The standard denomination of this world was stories. So, it was rather obvious that spoiling the future events would damage the probability far more than smacking Yu Young-hyuk in the back of his head. It's them. Yu Young-hyuk's companions all pulled out their weapons at the same time while staring at the enemies flooding in. The closing chapters of the fourth scenario should soon begin. The fourth wall addressed me. Youknl what youvebnd oing, re-GHT. Along with Pasususu noise, the ends of my hand were melting down. I observed the figure of Yu Yunghyak confronting Seoul's 7 kings. The gleaming, heaven-shaking sword, gripped in his hand, held out a courageous roar. Nil mater how hardutry. The 0th turn story had completely changed from the original. Yu Yunghyak of this world line would walk on a different path compared to every other Yu Yunghyaks. Th at guy can never see wh it's beyond the w. All I knew the meaning behind the fourth wall s words. There was no method of acquiring the fourth wall in this world line. Meaning, the last key to open the final wall didn't exist. Regardless of what he did, the 0th turn Yu Yunghyak would never be able to get his hands on that key. However, him failing to cross the final wall didn't mean he was fated to be unfortunate. Because, as long as I was the most ancient dream, his world line wouldn't be destroyed even after the scenarios came to an end. Certain truths would make everyone unhappy simply by their existence. Even though I couldn't show him the truth, I could show him the ending perfectly suitable for this story. Congratulations! Incarnation Yu Yunghyak has passed every trial of the Absolute Throne. Eventually, Yu Yunghyak defeated Seoul's 7 kings and stood before the Absolute Throne. The attention of every constellation within the Seoul Dome, as well as all the citizens gathering in the Gwanghwamun, was closely focused on his actions. He slowly unsheathed a certain sword hidden within his inner coat. It was the Fir'in demonic beheading sword. I substituted for the Lord of the Big Dipper constellation and lent him my powers. Constellation, Demon King of Salvation is looking at Incarnation Yu Yunghyak. One by one, 7 stars grew brighter and brighter. And the Fir'in demonic beheading sword, held in his hand, emitted blinding light as it evolved into a star relic. Outer gods are astonished by your incredible strength. The lords of the Big Dipper constellation are startled by your presence and are passing out from shock. All the constellations of the Korean peninsula are. I do not have any intentions of representing humans as disgraceful as you. Yu Yunghyak continued on. I do not plan on becoming a plaything for you vulgar constellations, and I shall not sit on this absolute throne. Those were words I thought I heard before from somewhere. Yu Yunghyak's sword flashed next. And I'll make sure no one else sits on this throne either. The Fir'in demonic beheading sword, the weapon that could cut apart the star relic's connection to a constellation. Yu Yunghyak used this very sword to ceaselessly slam down on the absolute throne. He slammed down over and over again. Soon enough, the loud crack resounded out. The night skies of Star Stream brightened as if a midnight sun suddenly materialized, and an explosion of messages flooded out. The storm of probabilities aftermath, caused by the distortion of the scenario, had begun. I quietly extended my hand and blocked that overflowing storm. The world line is dissatisfied by your excessive meddling. The applicable overwrite is beyond your mastery level. Portion of your fable will be lost. The current Yu Yunghyak was going through the 0th turn. Since he wasn't a regressor, he had no information related to the future, and he couldn't regain the techniques he used in prior turns through inheritance. From now on, the scenarios would only get tougher. He couldn't use bookmark, like me, and couldn't rely on Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint either. As that was the case, Kim Dokja knew very well what's necessary to fill that void. Yu Yunghyak would not have to go through the regression. He'd not become the secretive plotter, and he'd not become the tragic pilgrim wandering in between the world lines. Yu Yunghyak would get to see his deserved conclusion in this world. Incarnation, Yu Yunghyak has acquired his first ever fable. Incarnation, Yu Yunghyak's new fable has been created. He looked up at the sky. And also a fable taking on the form of a white tiger was looking up at me from behind him, too. It was none other than that very fable that protected me once upon a time. Fable, king of a kingless world, is born. I could see Yu Yunghyak's elated face through my disintegrating right thumb. Kim Dokja should not exist in this particular story. Even then, this was the story Kim Dokja dearly wished to create. When I slowly closed my eyes, it felt like pages were floating upright before me. Ancient pages, with traces of someone already having doodled on them. In that moment, Kim Dokja made up his mind. He decided to personally write the story that didn't exist in the original dot. I began jotting something down above those pages. 1 page, 2 pages, every time a page flipped by, time went by, 2. 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. My fingers disappeared one by one every time a scenario was cleared. They would regenerate some time later, but their size would always be smaller than before. I used those fingers to write the revelations, on the ending Yu Yung Hyok from the original desired, the conclusion I wanted to see, the mistakes I made, and things I gained new understandings of. All these stories gathered as one, and soon, became a fable. And so, just how long passed by like this? I slowly opened my eyes. Eventually, Yu Yung Hyok of the 0th turn had reached Chapter 524. Epilogue 1. The World of Zero. Part 8. Yu Yung Hyok's heaven-shaking sword scythed through the air, it cut down the constellations blocking his path, and sliced apart the incarnations acting as their underlings. Yu Yung Hyok truly fought hard. He was followed by the companions that broke past the scenarios together with him. E.G. Hai, E. Hyunsung, Zhang Huiwen, Shin Yusung, Kim Namwoon, E. Seol Hwa, Gong Pildu. System operation. Soul 7 kings were also together with them, King of Hidden Shadows Han Dong-hoon, King of Beauty Min Ji-won. Go, Yu Yung Hyok. The King of Transcenders Jang Hyang was also here, as well. We'll take care of this, conquering king. Not only them, but also incarnations from other nations, such as Fei Hu and Ranveer Khan, and even his sworn enemy, Anna Croft helped him. Constellation, prisoner of the Golden Headband, is cheering on incarnation Yu Yung Hyok. Constellation, demon-like judge of fire, is Constellation, abyssal black flame dragon. No other regression turn should be as complete as this one. Pachinmaying, we're moving out. The Pachinmaying. That was the name of the coalition Yu Yung Hyok had created. The conclusion I completed, as well as the blueprint laid out by the 1863rd turns Han Suyang, fables, the concentration of essence from all the regression turns found within the ways of survival, had begun telling their stories. Fable, King of a Kingless World, is talking a big game. Great Fable, Demon World Spring, has begun its storytelling. Great Fable, Season of Light and Darkness, has begun its storytelling. It was as if every story happening up to now existed solely for this moment. But, how? You shouldn't be able to come here yet. Eventually, they could see the astonished expression of the Dakibi king beyond the wreckage of the final Arkansas Yu Yung Hyok, and the members of Pachinmaying unhesitantly dashed towards him. Oh, you foolish incarnations! Killing me has no meaning whatsoever. If Starstream is destroyed, then you'll all disappear, too. A world line with its events concluded will be abandoned. No one wants to look at such a world line. The Dakibi king resisted desperately. As if to prove that his words were right, he utilized every single fable he possessed to fight back. However, it was not enough, he vomited out fables and knelt down. Even as he fell, he continued to grin. It's all over. Soon, this world line's destruction will commence. It's simply not feasible that the Great One would wish for a story like this. However, contrary to his expectation, the destruction did not commence. The Starstream was fine. The brows of Dakibi King shot up high. Starstream's final scenario has been concluded. Could it be? During his final moments, Dakibi King looked behind him as if to comprehend a certain someone's gaze surely looking at him from beyond the expansive, final wall. And right next moment, a line of text floated up over said wall. The Legend of Starstream, Conquering King Yu Yung Hyok. The title card rose up on the screen. And along with a beep dash, it was turned off. The now darkened panel reflected the view of a classroom and that of children sitting closely together. Their sparkling eyes were all focused on the face of a certain man getting ready to start his lecture. He slowly opened his mouth. I'm Yu Yung Hyok. Asterisk. Children really love that, Younghayak SSI. As expected, you're really great at teaching kids. They all seemed bored by my dull story, however. Iseolwa grinned wryly at Yu Younghayak's monotone voice. That's not true. He put his coat on without showing any visible changes in his expression. It had already been 5 years after the scenario of the 0th world ended. After the scenarios ended, Yu Younghayak and his comrades began rebuilding the world. Han Dong-hoon got in touch with the government and created a new governing structure, while Lee Hyun-sung and Jang Hui-won went around suppressing the acts of terror from the criminal organizations. Lee Ji-hai defended the country's borders and helped out with reaching agreements with incarnations from other nations, while Lee Seol-hwa and Shin Yu-sung rescued orphan children who lost their parents to the scenarios. The institution called Star Counting Night had been created for that purpose. While leaving the institute, Yu Younghayak noticed the young children looking up at him. They were orphans created by the constellations, but these kids would grow up while counting the disappeared stars. By the way, a juicy? One of the children grasped the ends of Yu Younghayak's clothing. He looked back and the child, having swallowed the brave pill, was now pointing at the older man's head. Gray hair. Asterisk. At around the 7-year mark after the scenario's conclusion, Yu Younghayak got married. His partner was Lee Seol-hwa. Lee Ji-hai dabbing away her tears, Gong Pil-do officiating in the ceremony, Jang Hui-won catching the bouquet. Shin Yu-sung sneaked out of her university class and sang the congratulatory song. They didn't have children of their own. Both of them didn't want to have any. There are too many children needing parents in this world already. They established the institution and looked after the orphans. It was a decision that fit their personalities perfectly. Time continued to tick by, 10 years, 15. Just like pages flipping past faster and faster in order to reach the conclusion, the time flow of the 0th turn continued to march forward relentlessly. Yu Younghayak grew older, just as he should. More specifically, only he grew old, all because of an attribute he picked up while clearing the scenarios. The legendary attribute, life lived to its fullest. During his 1000+ regression turn, Yu Younghayak never once used this skill. It was an attribute that a regressor like him had no use for. An attribute that, at the cost of living a fixed lifespan, fully unleashes the user's latent talents. However, the current him was from the 0th turn. He had no experience earned through regressions to fall back on, nor did have much of a talent to speak of either. And that was why he had to choose this attribute. Because only through this particular attribute could he be able to clear the remaining scenarios. Master, how old are you this year? Lee Ji-hai asked. I've already forgotten about such things as my age. It's been 20 years since the scenarios ended, so. Oh my god. It's already, humans all grow old and die. Arg, Master. Seriously. As long as the Star Stream S system existed, immortality wasn't an impossible dream. It wasn't uncommon to see beings that lived for hundreds, sometimes for thousands of years, just like the Breaking the Sky Sword Saint or Kyrios. Not only that, if you compiled enough fables and became a constellation, you could literally enjoy everlasting life. However, Yu Younghayak didn't do that. Stories without sacrifices do not exist. The night sky where the bureau no longer existed, and constellations had fallen. While staring at such a sky, Yu Younghayak continued to live in this world's days and nights. Then, 25 years later. And eventually, on a certain day after his hair had grown completely gray, he left the city. Captain, will you really seclude yourself in a backwater place like this? Shin Yu-sung asked. I don't enjoy noisy things. But, what about Seol-hwa Yoni? Yu Younghayak wordlessly polished his, heaven-shaking sword. In a world with nothing left to cut down, arduously devoting himself to the ways of the sword that had lost its purpose, that was Yu Younghayak's chosen method of utilizing his remaining life. Stuff like training in the ways of the sword can be done back in the compel. Shin Yu-sung couldn't finish her sentence, however. The clear surface of the heaven-shaking sword's blade reflected Yu Yunghayak's face. No one would think of him as a man in his 60s. Despite that, Yu Yunghayak would definitely die later. And Isiolwa, left all alone, would have to carry on living a long, long life without him by her side. Shin Yusung's lips bobbed up and down several times, and just as she finally managed to open them fully, Kim Nam-woon butted in first. "Conquering king, you're now all decrepit and stuff. I guess I can finally win against you this year, right?" He shouted out triumphantly and unfurled the bandages off his fist, then dashed towards Yu Yunghayak. "Kuwawak. My arm. My arm. No, wait. My eyes." Kim Nam-woon was flung away in one hit, he moaned in pain and collapsed on the ground. Companions snickered softly, the sounds of Jong Hui-won and Lee Hyun-sung holding hands and chatting away, the figures of Lee Ji-hai and Shin Yu-sung bickering with each other. I stared at all these scenes and at the same time read the sentence overlapping above them. Maybe I could have witnessed similar sights and sounds as this one. It might have been a bit different, though. Star Stream had been destroyed and the influence of its system was weakening in the world I used to live in, after all. The people of my world would grow old, just like Yu Yunghayak here. And amidst my companions steadily growing older, I too would have grown old as well. Yu Yunghayak's gray hair danced in the air as he watched his companions leave. His back remained straight and tall even in his advanced age. His skin still retained its elasticity, and muscles on his arms were still strong. Even then, his eyes no longer gleamed brightly like in the past. "Kim Dok-ja Youvebn here for 2L long," the fourth wall addressed me. "WHNSTA-ing inside 1 dr for 2L long, it gets harder." I understood what it was saying. I was the most ancient dream, and I had a duty to pay attention to all the worlds equally. However, I couldn't easily let go of this 0th turn. It felt to me that, if this story were to end here, then all the tragedies would begin anew, somehow. In that case, if I continue to hold on to this story for as long as I can. Demon King of Salvation, Yu Yunghayak raised his head to look at me. "Are you still curious about my story?" I hesitated a little before replying. Constellation, Demon King of Salvation, replies he still is. This world is no longer mired in scenarios. There are no stimulations, nor any irregularities. Yet, why do you still wish to watch this story? Constellation, Demon King of Salvation, replies that this is the story he wanted to see in the first place. "You're truly a strange creature." Fables began rising up from behind Yu Yunghayak. Fable, King of a Kingless World, is looking at the Demon King of Salvation. Fable, Demon World Spring, is looking at the Demon King of Salvation. Fable, Season of Light and Darkness, is looking at the Demon King of Salvation. Fables were telling their stories while looking at me. The very same fables that I earned once upon a time. Memories they had built up were now unfolding behind Yu Yunghayak's back. The world that I designed, the one that Yu Yunghayak brought to reality. The 0th turn story, completed in this manner. Sometimes, this piece feels like an illusion. And every now and then, I get the feeling that my life has been completed by someone else. Constellation, Demon King of Salvation, is, I didn't mean to say I'm unhappy. Yu Yunghayak smiled faintly. I dazedly stared at him for a moment there, having finally learned that he was capable of such a smile. I was always worried about how I should live my life. While lightly wielding the sword in the air, Yu Yunghayak continued on. Every one of his sword swings contained his fable. The incarnation who knew how to shrewdly apply the set rules, that was him. Yu Yunghayak might have spent his life fighting the system, but in all honesty, he was someone who'd shine even brighter when that very system was in play. A fight that can't be won holds no meaning to me. His ability to analyze the situation faster than anyone, his quick wit allowing him to clearly calculate the gains and losses, and his talent at deciphering the advantages and disadvantages in a battle. However, I've grown curious lately. What would have happened to me if you didn't help? What kind of a life would I have lived if I didn't win? I knew better than anyone what kind of a life Yu Young Hyuk lived after failing the 0th turn. I knew all too well what would happen to him, what kind of a life he'd live, and the kind of ending he'd witness. You probably are aware of it already. Chapter 525. Epilogue 1. The World of Zero. Part 9. Yu Young Hyuk planted his sword on the ground as he wobbled. His irises were becoming translucent next. His eyes, exhausted from fighting a lengthy battle, were losing their sights. If I choose you as my constellation sponsor, will I get to finally meet you? Constellation, Demon King of Salvation, is shaking his head. Just where are you exactly? All the stars in Starstream have fallen, so from where are you watching over me? Yu Young Hyuk continued to mutter out. No, wait. I know the truth already. You are, probably beyond that wall, aren't you? I couldn't say anything. I didn't expect the 0th turn Yu Young Hyuk to be able to catch on to that. He continued to speak in the meantime. Something felt off to me about this world. It was my first time hearing such a shrewd tone of voice coming from him. One day, I suddenly came into existence in this world. A man who came to exist in this world without a warning. Without any memories of my childhood, I was suddenly cast into this world. I wandered around an illegal work site, and through sheer luck, got spotted by the director, and thus became a pro gamer. But then out of the blue, someone abandoned a child on my doorstep. A child, supposedly my younger sister. A conveniently crafted life, a series of adversities created solely to become a tragedy later. Once, I searched for my parents. However, no matter how hard I searched, I couldn't find them. Even the professionals that could unearth the president's hidden illegitimate child couldn't find my parents. It was as if such things didn't exist in this world, to begin with. Constellation, Demon King of Salvation, is. So I ask you, Demon King of Salvation. Who am I? My heart was in pain. The fact that Yu Young Hyuk had eventually reached that question was endlessly tormenting me. I needed to say something. Anything. Does the secret of this world lie beyond the wall, where you are? Constellation, Demon King of Salvation, asks you if you're not happy currently. I am happy, he replied without a shred of hesitation. And that's why I'm even more curious about what lies beyond the wall. Constellation, Demon King of Salvation, is. I'm curious about the reason behind all the goodwill you've shown me. I'm also curious about the meaning of my life, where I was born, and why I had to come here. If I had one more chance. From somewhere, sounds similar to the ticking clock hands could be heard. Kim Dok-ja. I couldn't show you Young Hyuk what's beyond the wall. Even if I was the most ancient dream, that was still impossible. Yu Young Hyuk continued on. You told me this once upon a time. If I sign the contract with you, you will grant any one wish of mine. Back then, I didn't accept your offer because I was suspicious of you. However, if it's not too late. His fingers hovered in the air, searching for a log message that reached him in the distant past. Constellation, Demon King of Salvation, wishes to become your constellation sponsor. Will you accept the offer? I shall accept it now. Dizziness rushed in and the shaking of my surroundings worsened. I called out to the fourth wall. The fourth wall. Youcant. It already knew what I was going to say. The prerequisite condition needed for Yu Young Hyuk to cross the final wall was to gather all the fragments of the final wall. However, the fourth wall had no intentions of transferring to Yu Young Hyuk. I gritted my teeth and sent a message out. Constellation, Demon King of Salvation, says that wish can't be granted. Why not? Constellation, Demon King of Salvation, says that it is a truly arduous path, that's why. An arduous path? If I couldn't transfer the fourth wall to him, then there was only one option for him to see the conclusion. Constellation, Demon King of Salvation, says that if you wish to cross the wall, you must regress first. Regress? Along with the tsuchachachut noise, my entire figure was dyed in the sparks of probability. The world line was telling me this. It was saying that I mustn't inform him of this. It said this information wasn't something the current Yu Yung Hayok should know. Despite that, I bit down hard on my lip and shook off the world line's opposition. Even if I had to sacrifice much more probability, I wanted to show him the truth. 1864. 1864? What's that supposed to mean? Constellation, Demon King of Salvation, says that is the number of times you must regress before you can witness the conclusion. Memories from the life I had lived became a fable and began unfolding next. Constellation, Demon King of Salvation, says that even if you manage to live all those regression turns, the odds of you successfully seeing the conclusion will be extremely low. Not only that, the current Yu Yung Hayok had broken free from the original world line. He was no longer Yu Yung Hayok from the original novel. Timelines had branched off, and the future no longer existed. Even if he did reach the 1864th turn, there was no guarantee that he'd meet Kim Dok-ja in possession of the fourth wall. THRIS what? RASE the me mo rise of TH is TURN goosebumps broke out all over my skin. What if I give Yu Yung Hayok the fragmented memories similar to the original and send him to the next turn? If so, the world line should think of this Yu Yung Hayok as the original's Yu Yung Hayok. He'd be incorporated back into the original's world line, and live through the first and the second regression turns without any memories from this life. However, Yu Yung Hayok would become miserable once more. Why or why you deciding th at? I slowly raised my head. Yu Yung Hayok was still talking to me. I don't care even if the odds are low. Incarnation, Yu Yung Hayok, has accepted your offer. The fable began its storytelling, and the starlights seemed to extend even further. Your incarnation is waiting for you to say something. I remained silent for a long time. And eventually, I came to a decision. I had no choice but to tell him. I slowly regulated my breath and opened my mouth. Yu Yung Hayok. Been a while since I spoke in my true voice. An incredible storm of sparks raged on around me. I tried to suppress the incoming waves as much as possible, yet it was still this bad. Yu Yung Hayok opened his eyes wide and looked up at the sky. Was that your real voice? That's right. I can hear it surprisingly well. Yu Yung Hayok, going slowly deaf, muttered softly. A faint crease spread over the old man Yu Yung Hayok's expression. I pretended to not see that and spoke. I can send you back. However, if that happens, I won't be able to help you from the next turn onwards. The only way to make him reject the offer was to tell him the truth. You'll have to use nothing but your own powers to break past the scenarios. Those scenarios will be far worse than you can ever imagine, and you might end up encountering something you didn't want to at the conclusion you'd eventually reach. I thought back to Yu Yung Hayok. I thought back to the sorrows of the third turn, the anguish of the fourth, and the despair of the secretive plotter. And if you do choose regression, then you will lose the majority of your memories as you cross over. Those words caused the soft sounds of Yu Yung Hayok sucking in his breath to come out. No matter how resolute his determination might be, this one should be a hard pill to swallow. Meaning, everything precious to you will disappear. Seal why you remember, Hai and Song, Hai, all of them will. Just because I will forget about them, that doesn't mean they'll suddenly stop existing. I shut my mouth then. They definitely continue to live in this world. They definitely continue to live in this world. Like branding a seal, those words slammed into a part of my head and invaded deep inside. It felt as if a gigantic hand of fate was pouncing upon me. At that moment, Kim Dok-ja realized that this was the true completion of the 0th turn. The reason why there was no trace of the most ancient dream in the 0th turn. The reason why, despite that fact, Yu Yung Hayok still managed to cross over to the first and then to the second regression turns. Maybe it was. You dumb bastard. I gathered my hands and used the power to manipulate the dream gathered in me. The storm of probabilities aftermath crashing in caused my whole arm to scream in pain as if it was getting twisted and torn off from my body. I recalled all of Yu Hyuk's regression turns that I knew. I gathered all the lives he had led, as well as the fables I knew, and created a certain stigma. A stigma that acted as the motive power of this world, as well as the source of all of Yu Hyuk's tragedies. Stigma, regression, has been generated. Your stigma has been transferred to your incarnation. Looking satisfied, Yu Hyuk accepted the stigma. Stigma, regression LV.1, is getting ready to activate. You said earlier that I'll lose my memories. I did. Will I lose everything related to you, too? I hesitated with my answer. Yu Hyuk asked me again. Even all that convenient information you told me, too? Yes. I see. If you regret it, then it's not too late to. You also said you won't help me from the next regression turn onwards. I can't help you. It's fine to help, however. Even if I want to, I can't. I heard that the scenarios exist not just for the incarnations, but constellations, as well. Maybe, it was the same story for you. Tell me, you fool. If I continue to regress, will I ever get to meet you again? I couldn't say anything. These were utterances of someone who didn't know anything. In every sense of the word, he was the 0th turns dumbass, continuously babbling on while having no clue about his own future. Along with the words that hadn't been said yet, Yu Hyuk's ears began disappearing. The night sky was reflected in Yu Hyuk's eyes. As if he was a child wondering about his origins, Yu Hyuk estimated where in the sky the wall might be and extended his hand towards it. He'd become the secretive plotter someday, and at the same time also become the 1864th turns Yu Hyuk that I knew. He'd grow to resent me, and eventually reach the truth of this world. Stigma, regression LV.1, is activating. You have agreed to the activation of the stigma. Yu Hyuk's body began scattering away little by little. His arms, his legs, and then, his torso, too. During the final moments, he called out to me. Demon King of Salvation. With a truly strange and mystifying expression. I shall pray that you may continue to exist somewhere, too. Yu Hyuk's incarnation body scattered into silvery powder and he left this world line. The influence of the applicable world line's overwrite function does not extend towards the character Yu Hyuk's next regression turn. Your incarnation has forgotten your modifier. Your incarnation has forgotten all memories related to you. All information related to you are now marked as? All of his memories that couldn't be recorded anywhere would now be lost forever. In that case, where would all those memories go? I stared at the flickering light for a very long time. Asterisk. Hey, Yu Hyuk. Why aren't you saying anything? Yu Hyuk ended up staggering after receiving a loud impact to the back of his head. He turned around to discover Han Suyong and her deep scowl. I said, how do we do this group regression thing? I can suddenly remember. Remember what? Yu Hyuk stared back with a stupid face, and muttered in her direction. The 0th turns memories.